Hey everybody, please be sure to subscribe. Subscribe so we know you know when we drop new videos, new podcasts, and also please like the videos and share them. Share them, tell your friends about them, spread this great message that we at the Zoo are spreading. So subscribe, like, and share. It really helps. Thank you.
Welcome to Big Book Boot Camp, where recovery isn't just talked about, it's walked out line by line.
And where awakening, healing, and transformation unfold through the timeless message of Alcoholics Anonymous.
We're diving deep into the big book. No fluff, no shortcuts, just clear-cut directions that lead to freedom and an entire psychic change.
One step, one day, one spiritual experience at a time. This is the path to peace, purpose, and true recovery.
We're here to remind you more will always be revealed, but only if you are willing to follow the directions.
So grab your book, open your heart and your mind, and let's get to work.
Get to work. All right, Miss Lyndsey, would you like to lead us in the third step prayer? And for anybody who would like to join along, it is in the chat.
God, I offer myself to Thee to
Thee,
build with me and do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help with Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always.
All right, welcome everyone. My name is Elisa and I am a recovered alcoholic, and this is my partner in crime,
Lyndsey. Very, very happy to be here with you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
and today we will be starting our big book study on our title page. So if you have the 4th edition, we're going to open to the title page where it says Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. 4th edition. And this edition was published by Alcoholics Anonymous World Services Incorporated, New York City in 2001. And then we're going to turn to the contents, the table of contents. And we're going to break this down. So we have the preface, the foreword to the 1st edition, the foreword to the 2nd edition, the foreword to the 3rd edition, the foreword to the 4th edition, the doctor's opinion, and Bill's story. And in these chapters, we are going to investigate the problem. Then in chapter 2, there's the solution. Chapter 3, more about alcoholism. Chapter 4, we agnostics. It's going to give us the solution. In chapters 5, how it works. 6, into action. Chapter 7, working with others. Those are our action chapters. And then we have our pre-Al-Anon chapters, which is chapter 8, to wives. Chapter 9, the family afterward. Chapter 10, to employers. And chapter 11, a vision for you. It breaks down our personal stories into 3 different parts. The first part is the pioneers of AA. There you will find Dr. Bob's nightmare. You'll find Jim's story. And those are the pioneers of AA. In part 2, you will find a series of stories. They stopped in time. And these are people who stopped before they lost nearly all, which takes us to part 3. They lost nearly all. And it is suggested that the stories in the back of the book are read where we can relate to other alcoholics who have come in and taken our program of action. So for me, I'm not sure about you, Miss Lyndsey, but you can share with us in a moment. I would be going to part 3 to lost nearly all, or they lost nearly all. That's where my experience is. But all of the chapters in the back, all of the stories in the back of the book give us members where we can relate again instead of compare.
I would also go into part 3. They lost nearly all. I agree.
Does anybody, oh, and then there's the appendices, which there you'll find the AA traditions, the spiritual experience, which we will cover that 3 times in our study. We have the medical view on AA, the Lasker Award, the religious view on AA, how to get in touch with AA, and the 12 concepts. Would anybody like to come in and share on the breakdown from our title page through our contents? Comments, questions, shares? Charity. All right, we have 1.5 minute shares. Come on in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Charity, recovered alcoholic, and I just wanted to share on the title page. I find it amusing to some degree that, when I came into the program and I was in a room with over 100 alcoholics at a meeting, and I kept hearing everybody say their name and they're recovering, and their name and they're recovering. I became hopeless, and I raised my hand really quick, and I'm like, hey, I'm just wondering, when do we get well? And it was a couple of decades later that somebody pointed out to me the title page, the purpose of this book, how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism, which is a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. How amazing to know that I can get well from my alcoholism. What a message of hope right on the first page. Like, I am so excited about this. Like, I don't have to continue to just be in that bitter morass of self-pity with quicksand stretching all around me, and everything that I do isn't good enough. It's all bullshit, because you know what? Right here is the biggest promise of all. Right there. Sorry about that, being a little pushy, but damn it, it's exciting news. I don't have to be sick forever. I have light at the end of the tunnel. Yay! We don't have to be crazy anymore. I'm so excited. Sorry, I'm so excited about this, but yay!
Awesome, Charity. Thank you so much. And you're right. That is the biggest promise of all, is that if we follow the clear-cut directions as they're outlined in this book, we have become recovered from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And that is why we start on the title page, is because that's the reason why we do this, is to become recovered. So thank you for coming in and sharing that. All right, Miss Lyndsey, would you
Okay,
with the
so
preface?
yes, page XI, the preface. This is the 4th edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. The second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies. That's almost 4 times. The third edition, which came off press in 1976, achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000 in all formats. Incredible.
That is a huge mushrooming effect. Yes. And that's 19,550,000 in all formats, not just English, in all formats. Would anybody like to come in and share on that first paragraph that we've read? All right. Because this book has become the basic text for our society and has helped such large number of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists a strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. Therefore, the first portion of this volume describing the AA recovery program has been largely untouched in the course of revisions made for the second, third, and fourth editions. And I'm going to stop there because we ask, why haven't they made those changes? You know, this is 1939 and we're in 2025, and that's, we don't use some of this language anymore. And Bill was very old-fashioned in his writings, but we're going to learn soon that the success rates when the directions were followed as suggested were 75%. So why mess with a formula that's working? So
It's worked for so many others. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Come on in, Charity.
I guess they're saying in a lot more words, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
It's worked so well.
It has,
Absolutely.
I mean, the evidence is right here in this preface. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. The section called The Doctor's Opinion has been kept intact, just as it was originally written in 1939 by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor.
Okay, anybody? Would anybody like to come in about that last paragraph? Okay, the second printing of the first edition added the appendix Spiritual Experience. In the second edition, the appendices on AA tradition, the medical view, and religious view of AA, the Lasker Award, and information on how to contact AA were added, and the appendix on the Alcoholic Foundation was discontinued. But the chief change was in the section of personal stories, which was expanded to reflect the fellowship's growth. Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and one other personal history from the first edition were retained intact. 3 were edited, and one of these was retitled. New versions of 2 stories were written with new titles. 30 completely new stories were added, and the story section was divided into 3 parts under the same headings that are used now.
In the third edition, Part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged. 9 of the stories in Part 2, They Stopped in Time, were carried over from the second edition. 8 new stories were added. In Part 3, they lost nearly all. 8 stories were retained, 5 new ones were added.
This 4th edition includes the 12 concepts for world service and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows. 1 new story has been added to Part 1, and 2 that originally appeared in Part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in Part 2 have been carried over. 11 new ones have been added and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed in addition to the 2 that were transferred to Part 1.
All changes made over the years in the Big Book, AA members' fond nickname for this volume, have had the same purpose: to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately, and thereby to reach more alcoholics. If you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me. Or more important, yes, I felt that. Or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. So the preface is important to see the history and the changes that we've made. Again, the last paragraph sums it right up for us. And if someone is struggling, trying to identify, do I have alcoholism? Am I one of them? Are they one of us? Then refer them to the stories in the back of the book. Where do I relate? Would anybody like to come in and share on what we've read in the preface?
Harry, come on in.
So I think one thing that is, I don't know, pretty universal with alcoholics is that we compare ourselves to others and always felt that we didn't fit in and we were different from other people. And, you know, I used my drinking to become a part of the group and to quiet those voices of why I was different. And so I'm just, 9 months from my sobriety date. And so I'm still working on looking for the similarities. I did underline, that the most important thing is that, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. And that's where I think is the biggest part of doing meetings together is that I see other people having success and that they are recovered alcoholics and so recovered from alcoholism. And that's pretty hopeful. So thank you.
Thank you, Perry. Thanks so much for coming in today. Charity, come on in.
Hi there. I was really excited to see on XXI, I think it was XXI, but it talked about the concepts, the 12 concepts of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the way that it was explained to me is that a three-legged stool has 3 legs. And for my recovery, I need to have unity, fellowship, and service. And so we have the 12 steps. We also have the 12 traditions. And we also have the third leg, which is the 12 concepts. And the concepts seem kind of foreign, but the concepts are what we use. And I have a copy of a World Service Manual, but these concepts are structure for us how to conduct our business with AA as a whole. And 25 years into AA, I found out that we have another set of things to guide us. Not only the steps, not only the traditions, but we also have the 12 concepts. And the 12 concepts are so vitally important for all of the behind the scenes things that we do, like with the zoo crew and how they conduct their business meetings and how each meeting becomes and remains its autonomy. And I just wanted to point that out. No stool can stand well on 2 legs. We need balance. And I just wanted to throw that out there because I didn't realize that the 12 concepts were so early in the big book. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in, Charity. And Clyde, come on in.
Thank you, Lyndsey and Elisa, for hosting, and thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. And this last part here about the personal stories at the bottom of the page reminds me very much, it sounds like steps 1 and 2. So when I read those stories in the back and say, yes, that's happened to me, or I felt like that, that's me identifying and saying, yes, I've got a problem. And that's step 1. And then, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. That means I believe that help has shown up for me here. This program will work. That's step 2. So I think by reading those stories, and I'm a stopped just in time guy myself, before I nearly lost all. And if I can identify with some stories in that section and agree that this program can work for me too, I've completed steps 1 and 2 right there. So just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in, Clyde. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Clyde. And you make a really good point because this alcoholism is the only self-diagnosed disease. As much as people can recognize it in me, in order for me to completely recover from it, I have to admit that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life is unmanageable. And you're absolutely right. I believe this program can work for me too. This program is bigger than me. It's a power greater than me. That's restored me to sanity. So absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
That makes 3. I also agree with that. Sheila, come on in.
Hi, everybody. Sheila, alcoholic. I'm really grateful that the spiritual experience was added to this book and that it was added early like this, and that it's asterisked in the big book and that it's in the back of the book on page 567 for us to go to and read, so that it better explains how higher power and God works in our program. Thanks for
Thank you for coming in and sharing with us, Sheila. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the forward to the first edition. This is the forward as it appeared in the first printing of the first edition in 1939. Oh, I love this part. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Wow, is that ever a promise right there, right? To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. We think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all.
Thank you
So
for
there's-
reading that, Lyndsey.
Yeah.
There is, and we start out with the promise, right? When the first edition was written, there was more than 100 men and women who had recovered from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And the book is here to show us precisely how it has been done. And there's the warning, is that many people do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. And then it ends with another promise. And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. We'll get to chapters called The Family Afterward, 2 Wives, and 2 Employers, and working with others that show us how to give away what we're going to learn in the preceding chapters.
I just
Would
wanted to
anybody-
add also that these steps, when it says our way of living has its advantages for all, it's not only alcoholics and those that are affected with alcoholism. It's also, these steps in this way of life helps us to be able to communicate with people outside of that realm also, which I think is fantastic.
Absolutely. Would anybody like to come in and share on that part? It is important that we remain anonymous because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication. Being mostly business or professional folk, we could not well carry on our occupations in such an event. We would like it understood that our alcoholic work is an avocation.
So the meaning of avocation, a hobby or a minor occupation.
We freely give away what was so freely given to us. Anybody like to come in and share on that part of the reading?
No? Okay. When writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to omit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Very earnestly, we ask the press also to observe this request, for otherwise we shall be greatly handicapped. And I'm going to pause there because it's talking about the traditions. So if we flip to the back of our book, page 562, the short form. And if I look at tradition 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. That's which it's mentioning tradition 11 right there in the forward to the first edition. And then it says we are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word. And so that's traditions 8 and 9. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain ever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. And then 9 is AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. There are no dues or fees whatsoever. There's tradition. And the only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. There's tradition 3. We are not allied with any particular sect, we are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination, nor do we oppose anyone. We simply wish to be helpful to those afflicted with alcohol. And so if I look at tradition 5, each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers.
We shall be interested to hear from those who are getting results from this book, particularly from those who have commenced work with other alcoholics. I see step 12 there.
Step 12.
We should like to be helpful to such cases. Inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious societies will be welcomed. Alcoholics Anonymous.
That sounds like open-mindedness to me. We're willing to be honest and open-minded, so.
Mama Bear, come on in.
Oh, all right, Mama Bear's an alcoholic. Holly, Lyndsey, Elisa, that's wonderful how you're doing it. Switching, yeah, it really works great, in my opinion. I love what we just read, because when I first came to AA, I was court ordered. This was a couple of decades ago, and I didn't like AA. I found it rather cliquey. And at that time, I didn't like calling myself any name except a child of God. I didn't like being called I'm an alcoholic. That didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel right. However, coming to realize this time around that alcohol is like, I'd rather be an alcoholic than a person to have cancer. Alcoholism, there is a cure for following these steps. Cancer, there's hardly a cure. There's remission. I guess alcoholics are maybe a remission too, but I've come to accept the fact that yes, I'm an alcoholic, and yes, I need my medication. That's coming into these meetings, reading listening to the big book read, and coming into the meetings and sharing. Thank you very much for letting me share.
Thank you, Mama Bear. Appreciate your input. Something just crossed my mind about, my sponsor has a sponsor, has a sponsor, has a sponsor, and When it says that we should like to be helpful in such cases, commenced work with other alcoholics. That's, this has been happening for how many years now? We've been able to carry the message from one person to the next, and there's such beauty with that. It's worked for so many, and this is how we do it, right?
Freely give away what was so freely given to us. A book of suggestions.
Holly, come on in and share with us.
Hi, Holly, alcoholic. I'm kind of going back. If you, on the title page where it says we've recovered from alcoholism, and then in the forward it says we recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To me, your alcoholism is the disease of the brain, and you're never going to recover from that. But you do recover from your mind, your hopeless state of body and mind. Does that make sense? Because a lot of people think they recover from alcoholism, but I think science tells us now that you really don't, that you don't.
So we have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. We are not
Right.
cured, and we recover based on the daily reprieve, contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So we
Correct.
do
Okay.
recover. Yep.
Well,
We're never
yeah, okay,
cured.
but you still have the
We're never
disease.
cured of alcoholism.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Charity and Ted, come on in.
Hi guys. What Alyssa said, I mean, I don't no longer have the craving at all. In fact, I can't stand the smell of alcohol. And I used to suck it down like crazy. I don't mind being around it. It doesn't even bother me. I mean, I can go to a bar and have a burger. Am I still an alcoholic? Probably, yeah. But have I recovered from the urge to drink? Hell yes, I have. 100% completely. No longer a part of my life, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And even I enjoy going in the bar and listening to the drunk log too, because I remember those days when I was making a total ass out of myself and talking over each other and all that good stuff. Don't miss it at all, though. It is kind of fun listening, though. That's all I have.
Thank you so much for coming in, Ted. And I definitely agree. Not cured, recovered. Hey, Alyssa.
All right. So we're going to move into the forward to the second edition. And these are figures given in the figures given in this forward describe the fellowship as it was in 1955. Since the original forward to this book was written in 1939, a wholesale miracle has taken place. Our earliest printing voiced the hope that every alcoholic who journeys will find the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at his destination. Already continues the early text, 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities.
16 years have elapsed between our first printing of this book and the presentation in 1955 of our second edition. In that brief space, Alcoholics Anonymous has mushroomed into nearly 6,000 groups whose membership is far above 150,000 recovered alcoholics. Groups are to be found in each of the United States and all of the provinces in Canada. AA has flourishing communities in the British Isles, the Scandinavian countries, South Africa, South America, Mexico, Alaska, Australia, and Hawaii. All told, promising beginnings have been made in some 50 foreign countries and US possessions. Some are just now taking shape in Asia. Many of our friends encourage us by saying that this is but a beginning, only the augury of a much larger future ahead.
So I see two promises in there, that if we continue to follow the directions in this book, the mushrooming effect does not stop. And that last sentence, many of our friends encourage us by saying that this is but a beginning, only the augury of a much larger future ahead. And that word, augury, It's a sign of what will happen in the future, an omen.
Clyde, come on in and share with us.
Okay, hi, thank you. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Clyde, and I just want to point out that that word just showed up again, recovered. And what I have recovered from, I'm not recovering, I have recovered as the result of these 12 steps, I might add, and my higher power. What I've recovered from is a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And hopeless means that things are awful, terrible, and will never, ever get better. That's what hopeless means. And hope is my faith has been fulfilled. The promises of the program have come true for me. And so anyway, it very clearly says that we have recovered, not recovering. And again, it's from that seemingly hopeless state. Now I'm filled with hope, happy, joyous, and free. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. Loretta, Mama Bear, come on in.
It works. It really works. Yeah, I love this program. I really do. Yeah, I'm recovered from alcoholism, and I will stay recovered providing I stick to my medicine and stay away from that first sucker drink, because that's poison to my body. And I'm allergic to several things, and I stay away from them, and alcohol is one of them. So yeah, I just love it. Giving and giving back to AA. What I giving back. In order to get, you gotta give in order to reach. Yeah, okay. You gotta give away what you receive, and then you get back even more, twice as much. And that is a practice that I practice, and it works. It really, really works. So anyway, I'll be back. I'll be back.
It works. It really does. Thank you so
Really
much,
does.
Loretta, Mama Bear. Thanks for
Yep.
coming in. Perry, come on in.
I just have to be the nerdy mathematician that I am. And, using words like mushroomed. And then earlier you said that we're going to learn that like 75% of the people who work the program will recover. That is exponential growth. And it just gets bigger and bigger. And I think about it, through, what you said, Lyndsey, about your sponsor. If I sponsor 4 people, 3 of them working the steps can recover, that 75%. And then each of those 3, because they're working the steps, they are going to sponsor other people. And 75% of those they sponsor, and so forth. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I just think that's pretty awesome.
Sounds like there's a lot of hope in the house. This is wonderful. Hey, Charity, come on in and share.
Hi, everybody. Charity, recovered alcoholic. One of the things that's taken me over 2.5 decades to wrap my head around, because I love the promise that we talked about on the title page, which has been revisited several times in all of the prefaces about being recovered, is that I can't be recovered if I'm unwilling to let go of the old ideas and the old way of living that I lived. And part of the transition and the miracle of this program is I'm adopting a brand new way of living. I'm no longer dying alone in the bottle. And so this brand new way of living comes with it new activities that I must do every day. And really, as we're new in the program and we're trying to figure out how to do the steps, how to go to meetings, how to use the telephone, all that stuff, it becomes a way of life. And for me, at least, if I'm following the directions, and this way of life is so much better than what I could have ever have dreamt. And so, you know, it I have to let go of the old in order to embrace the new. And when I'm embracing the new and I'm living this new way of life where I'm asking God to join me with everything, I get new experiences.
Thank you, Charity. What I thought of when you were saying that is it's a design for living. That's what cued in my attention. Candace, come on in.
Mute. Come on, Charity, saying everything I was gonna say. Candace, alcoholic. Girl, I was sitting here, come on, Charity. Come on, girl. Because at the end of the day, right, for me, the obsession to drink is gone. I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink. It's about what I'm doing right now with God and how He is changing me. And if I want to remain in this space with Him, I got to change. And y'all, everything around me is changing. Everything and everybody. Just because I'm willing to allow God to lead me. And what He told me, I'm one of them new people, Charity. See, I like to get into the book and dig all into it and find out everything. But at the end of the day, it's all about God and my relationship with Him and doing what He tells me to do. And if I don't do those things, that's when those thoughts start to creep back up and creep back in. And then you're sitting there thinking, is that like mine telling me that? Hell yeah, because you're not following God. Thank you for letting me share. Candace, alcoholic.
You're welcome, Candace. Thank you for coming in.
I'd like just to add that we're still in the forwards and there's this much hope that we're talking about. So
Love it.
all right. The spark. Oh, talking about sparks, right? There's a spark in this room. There's no denying that. So the spark that was to flare into the first AA group was struck at Akron, Ohio in June 1935 during a talk between a New York stockbroker, Bill Wilson, and an Akron physician, William D. Silkworth. 6 months earlier, the broker had been relieved of his drink obsession by a sudden spiritual experience following a meeting with an alcoholic friend, that's Abby Thatcher, who had been in contact with the Oxford groups of that day. He had also been greatly helped by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, a New York specialist in alcoholism, who is now counted no less than a medical saint by AA members and whose story of the early days of our society appears in the next pages. From this doctor, the broker had learned the grave nature of alcoholism. That's a warning. From this doctor, though he could not accept all the tenets of the Oxford group, he was convinced for the need of moral inventory, which we now call step 4, confession, which we now call step 5, of personality traits, those move to 6 and 7, restitution to those harmed, 8 and 9, helpfulness to others, that's step 12, the necessity of belief in, so there's 2, and dependence upon God, there's step 3. Anybody like to come in and share on that part of the read? Come on in, Mama Bear.
Yeah, those are the key factors of staying of sober mind. Yeah, it took me a few decades to get it, but I got it, and yeah, I got I like writing my books. I've got written, highlighted, underlined, starred, everything within these next 2 pages. It's amazing how the program works if you truly work it and if you're honest with yourself. And you're honest with yourself, then you could have a good, clean relationship with our Father, and He will direct our path in this journey of recovery. Thank you very much. I love you guys. Peace out. I'll be back.
Thank you, Mama Bear. Okay, so prior to his journey to Akron, the broker had worked hard with many alcoholics on the theory, and I love this part, that only an alcoholic could help an alcoholic. I don't know how many people have heard this in the rooms, but I've heard so many people come in and share in the meetings about how, one alcoholic understands the other alcoholic like nobody on the outside would, and that's what I was reminded of when I read that. But he had succeeded only in keeping sober himself. The broker had gone to Akron on a business venture which had collapsed, leaving him greatly in fear that he might start drinking again. He suddenly realized that in order to save himself, he must carry his message to another alcoholic. That alcoholic turned out to be the Akron physician.
That 12 is vital. That's what I took away from that reading.
Would anybody like to come in on that last paragraph?
The physician had, oh, go ahead, Sherry.
Charity alcoholic. Only an alcoholic can help another alcoholic. And what I find is really interesting, if we cross-reference and we go over to the ABCs, after how it works on page 60, the B one, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism, because I spent my life trying to go to doctors, psychiatrists, therapists, counselors, take this medicine, take that medication, do this pill, whatever. And the reality of it is that all of that busy work that I did didn't bring me closer to God. And the only thing that brought me closer to God was working with another alcoholic and seeing the power of God work miracles in another person's life who had no reason to hope, but yet they were filled with love and light and hope, and they were born into being alive again. And that's the magic that we have to offer that no other professional can. Woohoo! We're kick-ass rock stars. We're God's army. Thank you.
Woo-hoo. Thank you so much for coming in, Charity. Jill, good afternoon. Come on in.
Thank you, Lyndsey. I'm still laughing over Charity's share. I love it. Yeah, it's interesting because likewise, I've gone to therapists over the years. My advanced degree is in counseling, so and I've always had a genuine desire to help others, but I've heard so many people in these rooms say that they drew closest to God through this program and the 12 steps. And I get that because I feel more and more spiritually connected as a result of AA and specifically this group. And so I think it's interesting because I've told a few family members, that the AA principles are, I grew up hearing Peace Prayer of St. Francis, which is step 11 prayer. And I'd really love to read more about the Oxford group because a lot, the 12 steps were derived from them. But, I tell people it's a spiritual program, and they were surprised. But anyway, I think we also will have the ability not to only help other alcoholics, but to help other humans, right? Because the principles that we're learning are equally applicable to the human condition across all different types of people. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for coming in and sharing, Joe.
Mhm.
Clyde, come on in.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Alcoholic Clyde here. I just want to point out that where Bill is when this happens is the Mayflower Hotel in Akron. And he's walking by the bar and he hears the singing and the joy, and he can hear the glasses clinking, and he really got scared about going in there and taking a drink. So he went to the phone book and he made a bunch of phone calls, and he ended up calling St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And that's where he got a hold of Henrietta Sieberling. And she was very involved with the Oxford groups and knew Dr. Bob. And she's the one that made that introduction for Dr. Bob and Bill to work together and become the first the group of AA, those two getting sober. So anyway, this is at the Mayflower Hotel in Akron. And Bill called a church, and it wasn't on his first call. He kept going through the directory, finally got a hold of Henrietta Sieberling at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, introduced him to Dr. Bob. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing, Clyde. Hey, Elisa.
This physician had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his alcoholic dilemma, but had failed. But when the broker gave him Dr. Silkworth's description of alcoholism and its hopelessness, the physician began to pursue the spiritual remedy for his malady with a willingness he had never before been able to muster. He sobered, never to drink again, up to the moment of his death in 1950. This seemed to prove that one alcoholic could affect another as no non-alcoholic could. It also indicated that strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, was vital to permanent recovery. So it's just reinforced in less than 2 pages, the vitality of step 12. And I always like to point out that it talks about willingness. The word willingness comes before honest and open-minded. And if I look at the spiritual experience, it says willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of my recovery, but they're indispensable. If I put those letters, take those letters and I make it, it says who. Without the who, my higher power, the how is not effective. So who comes before how? Let's throw that out there.
Mama Bear, come on in.
Thank you, guys. Willingness, yeah, that was the big key word for it all, and having the right sponsor. My sponsor was able to it was God that delivered me from the bondage I had from being able to write down my 4th step. But my sponsor last year was able to do it, and of course it was God, but he worked through her to bring me into that step 4 thing, and for that I am so grateful. And yeah, people have tried in the past and nobody could do it. Yeah, my relationship with God was good, but it wasn't. I needed this to recover from alcohol, because my faith alone did not work. It was going into that step 4 that that actually was the turning point in my life that was able to bring me to a point where I'm okay and I know I'll be okay today. And I could say I'm free. I'm free. Yes, indeed, I'm free. But it all started with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Loretta. And I just wanted to point out that, once again, it's stating that working with another alcoholic was vital to permanent recovery. So in order to maintain the state of being recovered, we need to be able to give away what we were so freely given ourselves. Charity, come on in.
You said what I was going to say. So, Candace, it was taken away from me by Lyndsey. But yeah, it is absolute. Once again, this is a ironclad promise. Permanent recovery. When you're talking to someone who was on the permanent relapse program until I got the willingness to do the work like Mama Bear was talking about, I gotta write that 4-step. I gotta confess what it is that has been blocking me. That's the recipe for permanent recovery. I need to take this stuff to God. And it also, I was reminded that, yeah, I left AA one time because my faith was so damn great. I didn't need you guys. And I ended up back drunk again. It's faith without works that kicks my ass. The end.
Thank you, Charity. Clyde, come on in.
Hi, thanks, Lyndsey. Alcoholic, here, let me get the timer set. Hold on here. There we go. Quiet alcoholic. Yeah, I just want to point out that, Dr. Bob was a deeply religious man, and he was associated with the Oxford groups for like 2.5 years, and it was not working for him. It wasn't until he got the full description of alcoholism and its hopelessness that Dr. Silkworth provided in the doctor's opinion and Bill shared with him. Then he realized, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, this is more serious than I had anticipated. And that's when he came up with when he realized what a serious malady he had, that's when he developed a willingness to really engage with this spiritual program of action. And so it's the one alcoholic helping another that is so important and effective. And also, it's been repeated several times, and it's going to be repeated throughout the book over and over, that working with others is vital to permanent recovery. It's a must and a get to. So anyway, it finally worked for Dr. Bob once he realized the severity of the problem and really got engaged on the spiritual program of action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clyde. Appreciate that. So I think it is me. I got sidetracked there for a minute. Okay. Hence, the two men set to work almost frantically upon alcoholics arriving in the ward of the Akron City Hospital. Their very first case, a desperate one, recovered immediately and became AA's number 3. He never had another drink. Oh, I just had a God feeling in my body. This work at Akron continued through the summer of 1935. There were many failures, but there was on occasion heartening success. When the broker returned to New York in the fall of 1935, the first AA group had actually been formed, though no one realized it at the time. Would anybody like to come in and share on that? Clyde, come on in.
Thank you, Lyndsey. Hi, I'm an alcoholic. My name's Clyde. And so this was, Bill got sober in the middle of December, early December 1934. Finally, Dr. Bob got sober on June 10th, 1935. And then this alcoholic number 3 is Bill Dotson, Bill D, the man on the bed. It's the first 12-step call between two AA members, the first group. And he got sober in about a week after Dr. Bob, so somewhere around June 20th. So that was the first AA group in Akron, Ohio. And then when Bill went back to New York, that's where the second group was formed. And then the third was in Cleveland, Ohio. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that their very first case was Bill D, Bill Dotson, and that's the iconic man on the bed when you see the picture. And his story's in the back of the book. It's beautiful. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Clyde.
A second small group promptly took shape in New York, to be followed in 1937 with the start of a third, and this is where Clarence Schneider comes in at Cleveland. Besides, there were scattered alcoholics who had picked up the basic ideas in Akron or New York, who were trying to form groups in other cities. By late 1937, the number of members having substantial sobriety time, I'm going to pause there. So 1935, 1937, substantial to them was 2 years. The number of members having substantial sobriety time behind them was sufficient to convince the membership that a new light had entered the dark world of the alcoholic. 2 years was a miracle back then. That's absolutely amazing. 1 day is a miracle, but substantial sobriety time was 2 years. And Clarence Schneider was the Cleveland, and we use for our workshop when we do the 12 and 4. We do it the way that they did it with the 75% success rate. The 12 and 4, Clarence Schneider document. And I've never had anybody leave a workshop that I've participated in, facilitated, disappointed.
Sheila, come on in. Thank you, Elisa. Sheila, come on in.
Hi, everybody. Sheila, alcoholic. So here at the Zoo Crew, I facilitated 112 and 4 meeting, and it was my first one. It was my first and only time hosting here at the Zoo Crew, and one other person showed up, and me helping that one other person, like, I learned more from it. I learned so much from it. My heart was so full of happiness and joy, and I had so much more realization from helping another alcoholic, that my mind was really pretty blown. And so that was my first really true heartfelt taste of how helping another alcoholic is, in my words, a game changer. And so self-admittedly, I need to do more of it. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Sheila. And I've heard the comment of it's helping me more than it's helping you go around, and that took a little while to understand. But now I really do, because even if it's reaching one person and you can sincerely feel that, I mean, I feel it in my soul and my heart when I'm able to connect with somebody and the light goes on, they talk about this light going on. It's absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And we could cross-reference that to page 89. Life will take on new meaning to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, have a host of new friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. That's a 12-step promise, but that's exactly what came to my mind as I was reading this, and exactly what Ms. Sheila's share, her experience. She said it, but not those exact words. So thank you for coming in and sharing them.
It was now time, the struggling groups thought, to place their message and unique experience before the world. This determination bore fruit in the spring of 1939 by the publication of this volume. The membership had then reached about 100 men and women. The fledgling society, which had been nameless, now began to be called Alcoholics Anonymous from the title of its own book. The flying blind period ended and AA entered a new phase of its pioneering time.
Our fellowship got our name by the title of our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. With the appearance of the new book, a great deal began to happen. Dr. Harry Emerson Fosdick, the noted clergyman, reviewed it with approval. In the fall of 1939, Fulton Osler, then editor of Liberty, printed a piece in his magazine called Alcoholics and God. This brought a rush of 800 frantic inquiries into the little New York office, which meanwhile had been established. Each inquiry was painstakingly answered. Pamphlets and books were sent out. Businessmen traveling out of existing groups were referred to these prospective newcomers. New groups started up, and it was found, to the astonishment of everyone, that AA's message could be transmitted in the mail as well as by word of mouth. By the end of 1939, it was estimated that 800 alcoholics were on their way to recovery. That is an 800% increase in recovered alcoholics. And it's also, if I flip back to the traditions on page 562, does that not, they were sending out pamphlets. So does that not encompass 8 and 9? Because 8 is Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but are service members, may employ special workers. They had to have people sending out the pamphlets. They probably weren't doing it. It was, they were giving freely of their time. And then tradition 9 is AA as such, I never be organized. But they may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. So it doesn't say who was monitoring or overseeing this process, but I would assume that someone had to. But the mushrooming effect continues. I'll give it back to you, Lyndsey.
Now by mail also. Charity, come on in and share.
Hi, everybody. Charity Recovered Alcoholic. I also wanted to take this opportunity because of the mushroom effect that AA went through this tremendous growth spurt. Can you imagine getting 800 phone calls, you, Elisa, or you, Lyndsey, of 800 people who are like, yeah, I got a problem, help me. And this is the time that Snyder formed his easy method to take people urgently or quickly with expediency through the steps. This is also when kind of like the back to basics idea of all of our 12 and 4 and our 12 and 2 workshops came into be. We don't have to make this super complicated, but oh my God, it's so awesome that we can come back and visit the step work anytime we want. And it's so amazing that we now have a formula to help large numbers of people. Look at the zoo crew.
You look at that. Thank you, Charity. Okay, so nobody else. In the spring of 1940, John D. Rockefeller Jr. gave a dinner for many of his friends to which he invited AA members to tell their stories. News of this got out on the world wires. Inquiries poured in again, and many people went to the bookstores to get the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. By March 1941, the membership had shot up to 2,000. Look at that number. Then Jack Alexander wrote a feature article in the Saturday Evening Post
and placed such a compelling picture of AA before the general public that alcoholics in need of help really deluged us. I think that's the word. By the close of 1941, AA numbered 8,000 members. The mushrooming process was in full swing. AA had become a national institution.
So I'm going to ask Clyde to come in and explain the, yes, come on in, Clyde.
Yeah, thanks, Elisa. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Clyde. And so, you know, the book, when they started writing, Bill started writing the book in the fall or summer of 1938. It was published in April 1939. So there were about 40 people sober when he started writing the book, about 100 sober, recovered by the time it was published in 1939. Here we are 2 years later. So it shot up to 2,000 in the beginning of 1941. By the end of 1941, there were 8,000 members. So in 2 years, we went from 100 recovered alcoholics to 8,000. Talk about a mushroom. My goodness. Wow. That's impressive. That's God. That's the hand of God. That's divine intervention. So thanks for letting me share.
That is the solution. That is 100%, yes.
Sheila, come on in. Thank you, Clyde.
Thanks, everybody. Sheila, alcoholic. And to think about those numbers, in today's, they did not have Facebook or Twitter or all the other social media, YouTubes, and even think about the Rokus and the other forms of media that we have today, where a message can be pretty quickly spread amongst our fellows. That was during a time where the newspaper maybe was the primary source of information. I don't know, I guess I can't really speak to it. In my mind, I'm just in awe about how quickly that spread, thinking back to they may or may not have even had televisions, right? So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Sheila. And you can
Sounds like
see
they-
that nobody would be there if they didn't feel like it was working too. I mean, it was just such a rapid progression, right? So there was hope. You can see hope in much of what we've read so far.
The willingness there to have the honest desire to stop drinking and to go to any lengths to do so. To go to any lengths to do so. They're like, we're talking Morse code time, kind of like it was snail mail. There was, I mean, it's the spark is underestimated, like, but right. Our society then entered a fearsome and exciting adolescent period. The test that it faced was this: could these large numbers of erstwhile erratic alcoholics successfully meet and work together? Would there be quarrels over membership, leadership, and money? Would there be strivings for power and prestige? Would there be schisms which would split AA apart? Soon AA was beset by these very problems on every side and in every group. But out of this frightening and at first disrupting experience, the conviction grew that AAs had to hang together or die separately. We had to unify our fellowship or pass off the scene. And that's what the traditions do, is they hold the group together.
And in there, I can see a little bit of a warning too. They had to hang together. So they had to do this together. They had to work together in order to make this happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Come on in, Clyde.
Yeah, thank you. Quiet alcoholic. So yeah, these traditions, let me get the clock going. There it is. the traditions. So what brought that on, Bill? Yeah, by the mid 1940s, we were in such a rapid growth mode, and he was getting a whole bunch of letters from people all over the country with the different groups. They were having having problems with power struggles and egos and leadership and outside affiliations. They had all kinds of problems that they were at risk of, fracturing the group. And so Bill realized that they needed some guiding spiritual principles. And he wrote this thing called the 12 Suggested Points for AA Tradition. It's our 12 traditions. And it was published originally in the AA Grapevine. And it was a tentative proposal at that point. And then they finally adopted the 12 traditions in 1950 at the first international convention in Cleveland. So that's what he's talking about. This rapid growth was fearsome and, problematic initially. So we have the 12 steps for us to recover, and then the 12 traditions to keep the groups functioning smoothly. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. Yeah, the next paragraph, it's going to encompass the traditions as well. Come on in, Charity.
Hi, everybody. Charity Recovered Alcoholic. And it was really cool. Apparently, Clyde has been reading or might have read AA Comes of Age. And in the center of this book, this is the first world convention of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've read this, and I've read a couple of other historical books. There was so much discord before the traditions came into life, and the requirements for membership were sometimes strange, sometimes fast, sometimes a lot, and it was blocking our ability to carry this message to the alcoholic. I personally find AA's history and how we overcame all of these difficulties amazing. And when Ted and I were talking just a minute ago, it's such a miracle and such a blessing that Ted and I have a stack. I can't go far enough back, but higher than I am of, like, this is AA Comes of Age. And we've been fortunate to be involved with the literature committees in our local meetings, that we've gotten so much material, and there's so much good stuff about AA. I'm just excited to share with you guys. It's a great book, AA Comes of Age. It's more history. Thanks.
Sounds like you got some gold there, Charity. Okay. As we discovered the principles by which the individual alcoholic could live, so we had to evolve principles by which the AA groups and AA as a whole could survive and function effectively. It was thought that no alcoholic man or woman could be excluded from our society, that our leaders might serve but never govern, that each group was to be anonymous, and there was to be no professional class of therapy. There were to be no fees or dues. Our expenses were to be met by our own voluntary contributions. There was to be the least possible organization, even in our service centers. Our public relations were to be based upon attraction rather than promotion. It was decided that all our members ought to be anonymous at the level of press, radio, TV, and films. And in no circumstances should we give endorsements, like make alliances or enter public controversies. Anybody want to come in on that?
Clyde, would you like to come up, or Charity, you want to come in and break down those traditions?
Not sure if I can break down the traditions completely, but I'm still Charity, still an alcoholic. What I was reading a Grapevine article this morning, and the heading of that letter was group autonomy, and that each group has the right to be wrong. And what an opportunity to be wrong, because we can learn what didn't work. And then we can change it till we keep changing and find out what does work. You know, it's amazing that we don't have to be a certain age, a certain size, a certain education, a certain background in order to come into AA and get help. It also means that, you know, we don't have to be a millionaire, or we can be as poor as a church mouse and we can still benefit equally. Our voluntary contributions about, you know, we pay what we can afford. And then I've also heard it said that, you know, back when AA started taking this voluntary contribution, when the basket was passed, if you need, or if you have a dollar, put in a dollar. If you need a dollar, take a dollar. We supported each other. We were the one hand washing the other. And, you know, when there's just so much to break down in under a minute. That's all I got for now.
You did a pretty good job, Charity. Thank you so much for coming in. Candace, come on in.
Candace, alcoholic. Thank you, Charity. And thank you for the name of that book. I'm gonna get it. Wrote it down. So I'm gonna come at this from a different, you guys probably heard it before, but for me, yeah, I'm gonna say it. The time frame that we were in when this book was written probably was not real kind to people who weren't white. But yet, two white men had the foresight to put this program together. Amazes me. I mean, I want to know, like, I want to get into their heads. Like, what? Because to me, that's God. It had to be God. A man didn't come up with this. So that's it. I'm just saying, when I look at dates and I look at what they did, I'm thinking, well, were there some black people? But there had to be, because they opened it up, right? So that's me. That's what I want to say.
Thank you,
Candace,
Candace. I think you just answered your own question there. That's absolutely incredible, right? Yeah. Charity, come on in.
This time. I don't know where it's at in the book, but I know it says that AA is all inclusive, and that they put that in there for a reason, and that's the reason.
And Candace, there's 2 stories in the back of the book, specifically maybe 3, about what you were asking.
Thank you, Charity. Come on in, Clyde.
Thank you, Lyndsey. Let me get the clock going here. Yeah. So I just want to point out, so the next paragraph tells us, you know, the 12 traditions are spelled out on page 561, 562 in the back of the book in the appendices. But this first top thing we read about was that it was thought no alcoholic man or woman could be excluded from our society. That's tradition 3. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. And that's the genesis and the origin of the Rule 62 that you've heard about. They created so many rules to become a member of AA because they didn't want people to come in and mess it up. You had to be just a perfect AA and conform in every possible way, or you might smear the AA name if you weren't the perfect sober alcoholic. So they made up all these crazy rules about who can and who cannot be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then they finally, when they got to Rule 62, somebody woke up and said, wait a minute, don't take yourself so damn serious, fool. So anyway, that's where Rule 62 came from. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you for coming in, Clyde. So Elisa?
So we're going to stop the reading there today, and we'll pick up the reading next week, right where we left off. Same bat channel, same bat time. If you want to continue to get rocketed and read about the hope before we get into the directions. We should finish off the forwards next week, and then we move right into the doctor's opinion. Would anybody else like to come in and share before we close out with the Lord's Prayer? So we asked that you take this spark, the one that they referenced that went into Akron, but the spark that just came into the zoo crew today on March 23rd of 2025, and give it away. And hopefully you bring someone else back with you next week to join in on all the fun. So we will ask everyone to unmute. We'll have a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering in and out of our rooms, and then we will close with the Lord's Prayer. Who keeps the zoo crew safe?
Our Father,
Our Father,
Father,
who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
thy
Thy
kingdom come,
thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us
This
this
day
day
our daily bread.
Forgive us our
trespasses.
trespasses.
Forgive those who trespass against
Those
us.
who trespass
Lead us not
against
into
us.
temptation, but deliver us from evil.
but
For
deliver us
thine is the
from
kingdom,
evil.
the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Amen.
Hey, everybody, please be sure to subscribe. Subscribe so you know when we drop new videos, new podcasts. And also, please like the videos and share them. Share them, tell your friends about them, spread this great message that we at the Zucker are spreading. So subscribe, like, and share. It really helps. Thank you.